Okay, in this video we will be discussing how you can incorporate assessments within a SmartAmp workspace. Now before we dig into the built-in assessment feature that SmartAmp provides, I want to talk a little bit about bringing in an assessment from somewhere else. So perhaps you've downloaded an assessment from the internet. I know many teachers are familiar with using PDFs from readworks.org, and you can incorporate these PDF assessments into your workspace just like you can create an assessment within the workspace. By finding the paperclip icon on the left, you can attach PDF files and notebook files. When I bring in my PDF quiz, I can have students annotate the quiz right within the workspace. If I want to make enough copies for my students, I can simply clone this assessment, or I could have students come into the workspace and clone one for themselves. Or in our next video tutorial, you will learn about handing out copies of a workspace to individual students or student groups, and that could also be a helpful feature for assessing students. Now, as we dig into SmartAmp's built-in assessment feature, we go right here to the bottom left where we will find the assessment icon. When you are creating an assessment from scratch, you can incorporate multiple choice, yes or no, true, false, text, and numeric types of questions. Once you've given your assessment an appropriate title, you can begin adding the questions. For multiple choice questions, you can select one correct response. To incorporate another question, you simply click on the arrow in the bottom center. Now you can incorporate a true or false question or a yes or no. All of these types of questions will be scored automatically. For text and numeric type questions, you can decide whether you'd like to keep the question open-ended or choose a specific answer choice that the students must type in. You can do this for numeric questions as well. If you decide to choose a specific answer choice, then SmartAmp will grade that question for you. If it is open-ended, then you will need to grade it on your own. Once you are finished creating your assessment, you may save and close the assessment by clicking below. By saving and closing the assessment, that does not mean that your students are ready to take it. You can go back into the assessment another day and add more questions, but when you are ready for your students to take the assessment, you will click Publish. Until then, your students will see a screen that says Assessment Under Construction. Now, you've published the assessment and your students are in the process of taking it. As the students are taking the assessment, you can monitor in real time and see how the class is doing as a whole. I like to keep this screen posted in front of the class so as they are taking the assessment they can see how we are doing as a whole group. It inspires them to go back and check their work. You can click right here to see the progress that students are making on each individual question. This is also a great way to deliver a proctored assessment. When 100% of your students have taken the assessment, you will click the Stop button. Now, if you had students that were absent and will need to make up this assessment, don't worry, we will cover that in a minute. As soon as 100% of the class has taken the assessment, you are ready to view the results right away. You can quickly see your class average right at the top of the results screen, and your students' scores are organized by alphabetical order and first name. By clicking the links right here, you can individually see what percent of students got that question right or wrong. Now remember, SmartAmp will not grade open-ended questions for you. If this quiz would have had an open-ended question, I would have to grade that myself. If you had a student who was absent and you need them to make up the assessment, you simply go back into the workspace in which you had the assessment, find the stopped assessment and click Edit. It will remind you right here that editing this assessment will create a new assessment report. I'm going to show you in a minute how you will access the original report as well as the new one. So we will click Yes to editing this assessment. Now, if there's anything I wanted to change for the absent student, I can make those changes, but once I'm ready for them to take the assessment that they need to make up, I will hit Publish. Now you can see that the student is ready to take this assessment just as his or her classmates did when he or she was absent. Now let's look at another way in which you can access the reports for an assessment. If we go back to our dashboard, you will see the Assess tab in the top right. From here we can see all assessment results and all class reports from any assessments I've created in any workspace. You will see the theme assessment I gave my students and the theme assessment I gave to my students as a makeup for those students who were absent. These assessments are side by side because they were both proctored this past week. I can access all sorts of information about my different assessments from this page. Now, as you think about differentiating instruction as well as assessment in your classroom, of course you can put multiple assessments in one workspace, or you could have students take an assessment and then go back in and change the assessment for another group of students. Another tip I'd like to share is how you can enhance your assessments with images to the right or left. For example, this question asks students to look at an image to the right of the assessment to answer the question. This ELA assessment has students pick out specific evidence from the text. I've highlighted a passage in green, yellow, and red, then asking the students what information from the story supports this statement. They're supposed to pick the red highlighted text, the green highlighted text, or the yellow highlighted text. I'm excited to see what you will do with assessments on AMP in your classroom.